Hello, everyone. Marvel Snap's most recent patch is still really fresh. We're still trying to figure out how that impacts the meta, what the new S tier deck that is going to eventually emerge is going to be, and figuring out where all of our other archetypes kind of fall in that place. And so at the start of the season, we saw a lot of bounce because everyone was rewarded Kitty Pryde, and so why not slot her into the most idealistic deck that she works with really well, being bounce. We see a lot of Galactus because that is some people's comfort list that they just kind of revert back into. It's never necessarily just so incredibly strong that it can't be beaten, but it is always a consistent performer. And so as the season goes on, I assume we see some archetypes that really start emerging as those clear-cut, strong contenders for this new meta that we're finding ourselves in. And so today's deck is a new look at Doom Wave. Previously, Doom Wave was more so to cheat out additional resources, to cheat a She-Hulk plus a Doctor Doom, to be able to just outpower and outvalue your opponent on those last couple of turns. Now, the way that we look at Wave and the way that we interact with Wave has to change along with her effect. And so now, no matter what card cost reductions are on the board, whether it be a Sera, a Zabu, whether they skip and soak, whether cards have been destroyed discounting death, after Wave is played, they are all going to be 4. And so you can use this information to leverage some early initiative game grabbers so that you can reach with Mr. Fantastic. You can compete with like a White Queen to get some value out on the board. And then you drop Wave plus maybe a Jeff, Wave plus Nightcrawler so that you can position your cards a little bit better to set up for a leader play, a Doctor Doom play. Sometimes it's also just going to be a She-Hulk play. And it makes any kind of last turn big burst plays that the opponent was wanting to do really unimpactful. Wave for me now functions much better than like a Sandman as a last turn lane lockdown style card. It's a lot more interactive, it's a lot more flexible. You can drop it early if you need to get some power out on the board. You can save it, drop it alongside another 2 cost, and it does everything that Sandman wants to do, but just a little bit better in most cases. And so today's deck is going to use Jeff. If you don't have Jeff, that's perfectly okay. Jeff is in this deck because having those cards that you can maneuver around the board to position yourself in the best way to win is so important and so impactful whenever you can only drop 1 card on the last turn. If you don't have Jeff, you can try something like Goose. Goose is going to really restrict the opponent in where they can play because if you drop a Wave and a Goose, if you have Goose on the board or you drop them both on turn 5 together, all of the cards are going to get set to 4 cost. You can then guarantee how much power your opponent has in that Goose lane, and they're not going to be able to do anything else or play anything else to stop it. So I think this archetype has a lot of potential. I think it has a lot of reach. The early preliminary stats puts this really close to competing with those top tier, those A tier decks right now. But it just has a really low sample size because we do have to rethink how we look at Doom Wave. Rather than looking at Wave as that way to cheat more things onto the board, we have to look at it as that lockdown style card that really restricts the opponent in how they play, giving us more advantage by knowing either more information or having better resources to impact those lanes on the last turn. And so we are going to go ahead and jump over into a couple of games. I think this deck is poised to be one of the top tier contenders once it gets fleshed out, once it gets refined even further, and once we find the best applications for it. And so we're going to go ahead and jump over into a couple of games. I hope you guys enjoy. All right, first up we have Hamstero. The first location is the Nexus. So depending on what the early game looks like, maybe we can convince them to play cards there early. Maybe we get a Nebula down. None of the other locations really matter much outside of the Nexus. Now we can do the cheeky Wave into leader, which I think is going to be such a phenomenal lockdown component. And then Weird World. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Why? Why do you hate us so? All right, we're gonna skip here. We'll probably do something like White Queen on 4 just to get extra value in the Nexus. We can then do Wave on 5 into doing a leader on 6 to make sure that we play whatever they end up playing. The Weird World game is like it has to appear the first time you're recording for a deck, or for a lot of people the first time you're playing a deck. So we do steal their Doctor Doom. Interesting. So they likely have the Doctor Doom play. Do they ooh, they could have stolen our Storm. Stealing our Storm is scary, but I think we're okay. Let's do the Wave. We're going to do Kitty Pryde as well, for no other reason than just because we have it. Wave is going to set everything to 4 next turn, so even if we held the energy, She-Hulk doesn't get reduced. which is the good. It's like the kind of asterisk plus to that wave change is you no longer have to only do wave on 5. You can play some of your 2-cost cards. So that increases your flexibility in like what you can play and how you can play it. They did a Sera, and so with the new change, Sera no longer matters. Sera is no longer important here because wave is going to oversee all other card reductions. So their Zabu, their 4 costs are still 4. The Sera, all of their cards are still their original cost. And so the lockdown potential of wave is now so much more detrimental and less transparent than something like Sandman or like an Electro Sandman ramp, and it can just be so devastating for so many decks. We will go ahead and take the 1 cube. Let's jump over into the next one. You guys, weird. I don't really care to showcase another Weird World game, but our next opponent is Dwayne Johnson. I may or may not have titled my deck "The Wave the Card Johnson." Kismet? I think so. I think it's meant to be, you guys. We're going to go ahead and skip to the next game, but I just wanted to point out the gloriousness that was that coincidence. So let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Deadwood. The first location is Central Park. So something like a Killmonger could open up the board quite quickly. We're not running Killmonger in this version just because we have our Nebula. We have Debris to add extra clog onto the opponent's side, making them and forcing them to forcing them into kind of hard to read, hard to anticipate situation. We have our Killmonger that we have our Nightcrawler that can move around the board. We now have Armor down. They have Jeff, which can move once. I think what we're gonna do here, do we do a Debris? Let's wait 1 turn. Let's do the Mr. Fantastic. Maybe we White Queen next turn. Maybe we Debris. I wanted to wait until they played a few more cards to be able to lean in and utilize that resource. Let's go Nebula and Debris now. That's gonna avoid getting the rock here. The Nebula is protected in Central Park lane, and it's gonna clog them up just a little bit. After turn 5, whenever Grand Central pulls into a card, they're only gonna have 1 space left in that right lane as well. So now let's go with the White Queen, guess into the hub, and we'll see what it pulls. So it pulls a Thanos. It pulled a Thanos. What we can do is we can move our Nightcrawler over. That puts us at a tie here. We can then do the Thanos. I'm guessing they got Thanos from the hub, but we're absolutely going to utilize it. And so we tie in the right lane. Gamora comes down. Why would you ever Gamora into mid, my friend? They forgot. They forgot about Nightcrawler. It's really easy to do. Whenever we were first starting and like every deck ran Nightcrawler, it was a lot less likely that you end up forgetting about it. But now you don't see it as often. It's easy to, especially if it's played early, it's easy to forget that it has that movement left in it. We will absolutely take the weird win and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Whiny Tortoise. The first location is Monster Metropolis. We're going to start by playing our Nightcrawler. And they have a Nova. And so Killmonger is starting to slowly creep back up in a little bit of popularity. The second location is the Elysium. It's not going to matter that the Elysium reduction is there. Ooh, no, it's not. It shouldn't. It should still make all of the cards 4, I believe, on the last turn. But I think no matter what the reduction, it doesn't matter. So the Nova, the Goose, tells me this is probably like a Silver Surfer deck, potentially. And as a Silver Surfer deck, I don't think they're going to be running Shang-Chi. Some do, but I think most don't. The Star-Lord, okay, could not. Maybe it's not a Silver Surfer. There's the Polaris, which does support a 3 cost. But the other ones could just be their early game. Maybe they're trying to complete the season pass with the Star-Lord, and so they teched it in. It doesn't do terribly in the deck. It's not like it's awful when it's played there. Let's go with Nebula and Jeff. Actually, let's go Nebula one more time. We're gonna give them that extra. We're gonna give them that extra destroy. If they wanted, it's theirs. The Star-Lord comes back down. It does get buffed up even further. Floating Vats is super nice for Star-Lord. And so they do play Juggernaut. Interesting. Okay. They played Juggernaut. It does look like a Silver Surfer, but they weren't leaning on the Silver Surfer piece. So let's play a lot of cards here. We're gonna do our debris. We're gonna do our debris here because I assume they play their Sera into mid. Thinking as a Silver Surfer deck, Sera goes here. They don't want to play it here. They may play Star-Lord again in Cloning Vats, but I don't. For some reason, I don't feel like they're going to. We can then do Jeff. We can then do Nebula, and then we do Wave. That's going to allow us a lot of flexibility. We can move a card in each location. On turn 6, we also limit them to 1 card per turn. And so the Killmonger does come down. We do keep 1 Nebula on the board. So they copied their Star-Lord one last time, buffing up that lane incredibly large. We cap out both their middle and their far right lanes. And so, yeah. Wow. So this initially looks like a loss, right? We're losing by 10 here. We're losing by 21. We're losing by 21 in this lane, but they can't play. The Wave and the Goose makes it where they can't play any cards. They don't have anything that can move. So we can play our Chavez. Nebula is going to grow by 2, so that's 11 power here. We can win this lane by 1. By the sneaky 1. I'm going to move Jeff just because, just to add insult to injury. But we are going to win this game. I think they stick it out just because that is such a big deficit in the Elysium lane that it's just not likely that we have a way to counter it. Fortunately for us, we do. The Wave, after blocking them the rest of the way with debris, the Goose from their end restricting the space of play gave us every single tool that we needed to find a way to win. So we will absolutely take it. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Winter. Not summer, autumn, spring, but winter. Winter is coming. He is here. There's nothing we can do about it. So the Icebox hits our White Queen, which is really unfortunate, especially if we go with the Wave playline. We're not going to be able to get that power on the board, plus the insight into what kind of deck they're running. Let's go with the Mooster Fantastic that will grab us early initiative so that we can kind of take control of the board state. Cosmo comes down, and so it could still be a Silver Surfer. It could just, I don't know. It could just be any other deck, like could have a Sentry, could have a Destroyer. There's a lot of cards they could hide behind the Cosmo lane. Let's go ahead and play our Nebula and our Nightcrawler. Nothing fantastic on our end just yet. We can move both Jeff and Nightcrawler. Wait a minute. So it is a Sentry deck. They play the Cosmo, but they play this over here. Wild. Okay. So for this turn, we're going to play Wave. We're going to play Wave and that's it. After that, we can see how and where we need to play the rest of our cards. The Hawk in mid is big. The Hawk in mid is really, really big. That lane does go down to 9, though. We can do something like this. I assume that Nebula grows here. But actually, maybe we do something like this. So this will put us to 10. Ooh, wait. They could have a Rock Slide, which puts them to 14. Move our Nightcrawler, leave our Jeff there, and then we're going to do the Dr. Doom. We're not going to move our Jeff. We're going to leave it as is. They get to play 1 card, which is the Mystique to copy the Hawk. Now it all comes down to if they have something big in the Dark Dimension. They have Korg, but Korg is not going to be big enough with our Doombot coming down. Our Dr. Doom absolutely saving the day. The Nebula making sure that we win that middle location. We would have won the point differential because the Void was really restrictive for them, but it was a incredibly close call. We will absolutely take it. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Solverstein. The first location is the Wakanda Embassy. They're running a Thanos deck, which does seem to be growing a little bit in popularity. Thanos is one of those that I don't think it ever shows as strong on the tier lists, but where I think its true strength lies is that it is very flexible. You don't know what kind of deck they're running. until they start dropping some cards. And so they ran a Killmonger on turn 2 just in case we had an armor to protect our Nebula. We didn't, but that makes me assume that this is a like a death or a lockjaw rotation one that wants to maybe lock down some lanes. Maybe it wants to flip some cards, have a leech on that last turn, and we get a She-Hulk. They get a Punisher. We finally get a good trade out of X-Mansion. I've been playing off and on all day, just kind of experimenting with different builds. And I feel like, I swear that that is the first positive trade from that location. Now, we don't have our wave here. We have a 1 out of 4 shot of drawing it in this next turn. We go ahead and drop our She-Hulk. They Shang-Chi the one that we got from the X-Mansion. Fine. We're going to do White Queen to see what their highest cost card is. I don't feel great. It's a death. Okay. If they now do something like a Killmonger or something to destroy those cards in the right lane, we benefit as well, or equally to how they benefit. And so they have a death. Now have a death as well. Our death is 2. Their death is 2. I think we probably lose this one. But we're going to do some sneaky shifting. We're going to move the Jeff into mid so that the Punisher is not enough to tie that location. We're going to move our Nightcrawler over to the left. And we are able to hold down the win against the null play. They had a lot of destructions. The White Queen and that information that it gave us, plus the resource that it gave us, was so impactful that we were able to hold down the win. Otherwise, this would not have been possible. We will absolutely take the 2 cubes. I feel like I've only drawn wave a handful of times. So let's go ahead and jump over into one more. All right, next up we have Hunter, maybe. I never know if someone with like just a first name is a bot or not. So they play Yondu off the bat. It hits our armor. We can't protect our Nightcrawler anymore. We can't lock in the Yondu. Could be a Galactus deck or it could be a Death deck. It is one of those toss-ups. Whereas before you see the Yondu, you were typically thinking Death Wave. Now it's just a traditional Death deck. Both have null, but it is kind of up in the air which one you're going up against. The Wolverine comes down, which tells me this is either more of a turn 6 Galactus or just a full-on destroy. I'm going to go with Mr. Fantastic here. We do have some reach in the Crimson Cosmos. The Electro comes down. Okay, so the Electro comes down. It tells me this is maybe more so in line with a Galactus. And so now what we can do is just drop our debris. They're going to pull our resources, and I think we're perfectly fine. We're going to snap into it. We're that confident. We're going to snap into it. The debris is going to block the hub and the Crimson Cosmos. Now, if they have a destruction tool, fortunate, but I think they use a Doc Ock into the negative zone this turn to drain us of some resources. Could have been wrong. The Namor. Wow. What? They got it from the hub. They ramped into a Namor? Okay. Say no more. All right, we're gonna do Nebula. We're gonna do Wave. We're gonna do Nebula. We're gonna do Wave. We can move our Nightcrawler, and then we have Doctor Doom to impact multiple lanes on the final turn. And so they won't be able to do a Galactus. They could do something like a Destroyer, but we're gonna make sure they can only impact. They can only do 1 card of impact. The Nova. So if they want to draw, I guess they could do Destroyer. That would leave the Wolverine and the Destroyer. They couldn't do Killmonger plus something else anymore, and so we are able to hold down the win. It came down to them making that decision of which one was going to be more beneficial or more impactful. And so we will take the 2 cubes. That one, the wave, did hold us down, along with the debris to block the Galactus lines. We will absolutely take those 2 cubes. That's where we're going to end the video. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to give it a like and a comment down below. And as always, this has been TLSG. Later, guys.